Hi everyone, so my name is Rebecca Zafra and my video topic is on gender equality. And if you aren't aware, gender equality is the state in which the access to our rights are unaffected by our gender. And I decided to start off the video by highlighting how far we've progressed in achieving this equality and the obstacles we need to face in order to reach full equality. So I thought I'd talk about the history while giving you a brief look at the heart of my city, which is Naples, downtown. And I wanted to start around the 100-year mark. So in 1918, Margaret Sanger was a birth control activist, nurse, and sex educator who popularized birth control and the advisement to married patients specifically for health reasons. And her work led to the creation of Planned Parenthood in 1942. And then 2 years later, I think this is the event that everyone knows when it comes to gender equality, and that is the women's suffrage movement, and that led to the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. In 1923, the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced, and it states that men and women shall have equal rights throughout the US and every place subject to its jurisdiction. And then I'm going to jump to 1963 because that is when the Equal Pay Act was passed, and it promised to remove wage disparities for people who are in the same position based on race, color, religion, and obviously gender. And while the gap has improved, the goal of this act has not been fully achieved, and I will be touching on that a little bit after the history. The next year was when sex discrimination in employment was prohibited due to Title VII of the Civil Rights, and then jumping to 1972 was when Title IX of the Education Amendment prohibited sex discrimination in programs that receive federal support, which means that that is when we got the opportunity to play in school sports as women and gave us the chance to earn athletic college scholarships. The last 2 years I want to talk about is 1992 because it was deemed Year of the Woman because record numbers of women were elected to Congress, specifically 4 women winning Senate elections and 24 women elected into the House of Representatives. And then in 2009, it was when the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Restoration Act allowed women to file a complaint of pay discrimination with the government against their employer within 180 days of their last paycheck. So I specifically chose gender equality because it does fall under the social problem category. And by definition, that is a social situation that a large number of people feel are inappropriate and needs a remedy. And women in today's society face a lot of challenges that our male counterparts may not be aware of, even if it is subconsciously or consciously, and sometimes they are even caused by men. And I feel that I personally relate to this because I am a woman living in today's society, and every day I experience some type of inequality. Upon entering my workplace, it is evident that it is a male dominated environment, and due to this environment, I feel that I am personally victimized to gender inequality. So I am going on working for my employer for about 2 years, and about 3 months ago, a male counterpart applied for the same position I am in with the same amount of experience I first applied to the job with. And I just discovered that he is actually being compensated at a higher rate than I am, despite me being there and working for a longer time period than he has been. So the biggest issue that people refer to gender inequality with is the pay gap. And so, as you can see from Southwest Florida, here is a table from 2016 that shows how many women are employed in each county. So, specifically, Lee has the most women employed in per population of each county. And this is basically a study for women in Florida by county, specifically towards employment and earnings. And it says that on average, in all of Florida, the woman earns 87.5 cents per every dollar when working a full-time and year-round job, but it does vary per county. For example, Hendry County's wage gap is just 2.8% compared to Florida's average of a 12.5% wage gap between men and women. So that basically means that compared to the 87.5 cents that women are getting paid, Hendry County women are getting paid 97.2 cents per every dollar that men earn. And while this may seem well for the women in Hendry County, it is still, we have a long way to go because over the last 10 or so years, the national ranking of of Florida when it comes to employment and earnings for women compared to men, we have actually dropped to number 36, and our personal grade went from a C minus to a D plus. So we are actually declining in our strides towards gender equality. And I thought I'd just like to show another chart, which is updated from 2017, just to show specifically the numbers of Fort Myers and Naples, in which a male in either location earns around 59,000, and a female earns about 44,000 per year for the same occupation. So one would assume that this pay gap is and gender inequality is present because the population is male dominated or your workplace is dominated. But for example, in Fort Myers, the sex ratio for the population is actually pretty equal. So females are a little bit higher with 50.37% of the population, and males have 49.63%. Now, I believe the cause for this gender inequality is because we've just recently been striving towards addressing the problem. And so one of the organizations combating this gender equality problem is the Women's Foundation of Collier County, which are alleviating unmet needs and empowering women and girls in Collier County. So they are raising funds as a way to invest in women and into ways to focus on systematic solutions, such as towards changing policies and systems that increase women's opportunities in society, and basically making up for that pay gap that we have to endure. Of course, there are other organizations that help women, of course, and empower them, but those are more shelters and food banks. Now, for the last point I want to make is we are in 2019, so we have to address new and upcoming challenges that can also um, hinder our progress for gender inequality, and that is the transgender community. They are still up and coming, but gender equality issues are always viewed in the perspective of cisgender male and females, so it doesn't take into account our transgender individuals. So, for example, if a top paid male associate is thinking or is currently going through the transition to become a female, do you think they're going to experience the same inequality as a cisgender female, or maybe even a worse experience? So I just wanted to give that little insight on how we are evolving as a society and have to include different aspects about the issue and how we can forward our progression towards reaching full gender equality.